Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Our episode this week features Angie Anger, a self-intimacy and sex coach. So before we kick off and I give you the whole intro and everything, I want to let people know, in case you are listening to this on full blast, and it may not be something that you want to listen to on full blast because it may set you up for some conversations that you don't want to have yet. Or maybe it does, and maybe you just want to turn up the volume, but always want to put a disclaimer out there because why not? So, Angie is a self intimacy and sex coach. She helps women and femmes reclaim their pleasure. She understands the challenges of low desire, body image issues, and relationship struggles firsthand. Through empathy, compassion, and play, Angie guides clients in identifying and overcoming barriers to sexual fulfillment. In 2023, she founded Oh What Beauty, an intimacy and pleasure shop featuring only products from women owned brands. Angie is available for one-to-one coaching, small groups, events, and speaking arrangements. And the reason that I am so excited that she joins us this week and that you're going to hear this conversation and another one coming up, which is also very exciting, is that she's does not specialize in self-intimacy and sex for necessarily the individual, but that she also brings the parenting lens to it, because I think that a lot of times when people talk about this, you don't want to have a conversation with someone who's like 25 and childless. You want someone that understands that there's a lot of identity shifting. There's a lot of body changes that come with pregnancy and postpartum and aging and all of these things. And so she is a really great take on understanding that people are very multifaceted and trying to address it in that way and in regards to that. So I hope you really enjoy this episode. If you have any questions, she is so easy to talk to and really available by email. So I would not hesitate to reach out if this sparks something for you or you have an interest in learning more or discussing. But here's Angie. Hello and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. My guest today is Angie Anger. Welcome, Angie.
Hi, Ashley. It's nice to be here.
I think that this is going to be a really great conversation because I think it's a conversation that a lot of people want to have but don't have. Preview of shout or whatever it is. Preview of coming attractions. That's the sentence. Yeah. So before we jump in, though, what would you like people to know about you? And that goes in whatever direction you want it to.
Hello. I am a mom of a 7-year-old. I live in New Jersey and I am a sex and self-intimacy coach. And I did the thing that I think a lot of us have done where I've taken a really windy path in my career. I started my career with a master's degree in counseling, working in a locked residential psychiatric unit, which was pretty intense for a 22-year-old. And then got into marketing for 15 years and have really found my way back into the field of human sexuality and of sort of the helper care world, I guess. So I'm really happy to be finding sort of my way back home into that space. So, yeah.
How did you go from locked psychiatric to marketing?
Great question. So it was 2009, which if you are around my age, you'll remember was a bit of a recession. And so I took that job because it was the only one I could find. And I moved out to Portland, Oregon from Minnesota. And then a year later, a former boss of mine for a program for families who have kids with hearing loss, which was another one of my niches, was like, do you just happen to want your old job back? Like your admin job? And I was like, I will take anything, please. Like, I can't do this. I'm too sensitive. And that was really, really early days of social media. And so I was like the resident millennial and they were like, figure this out. And I was like, okay. and ended up being the second full-time person ever hired at General Mills in social media, and that's kind of where I learned how to be a marketer, and then it took 15 years to get back. So kind of a windy little road, but interestingly, and probably not surprisingly, a counseling degree is pretty useful in really any field, and especially so, I think, in marketing. So I always joke that I've literally never taken a marketing class like in my life, and still managed to become a director and a vice president at one point. And so it applies. It's transferable for sure.
Yeah, I love that. Feel like I have one of those degrees too where people are sort of like, "Well, you could work, like, in the hospital, but, like, what else can you do?" And then you start to pull
Mhm.
out, like, all of the different things that you learned when you went into that field of study and all of those different layers of experience that you have, and all of a sudden you're like, "I don't know how I got here. Like, why how am I a tech founder and I am an
Yeah.
OT?" But we just again, you and I are sort of, like, weaving along these little pathways.
Yeah. You just find your way somehow. I love those moments in your career though where you're like have a moment of clarity and you're like, "How did I get here?" Like I've had a couple of those. Once was in Tokyo, I was presenting on social media in North America. That was the title of the presentation in Tokyo in like a room full of Japanese businessmen, and it was like, "How the fuck did I do this? Like, how did I don't actually know how I got here." So, you kind of just have to appreciate those moments when they happen.
Yeah, and I feel like that's I mean, if you set out when you were, just getting started to be like, "Someday, this is the presentation I would like to have," like,
I
think of
know.
how many hoops you jump through just to try and get there versus, like, "Let's just
Just
sail
following
down
it.
this river." Mhm.
Yeah, and also, like, all the careers I've ever had didn't exist before. Like, they didn't exist even when I was in college. Like, coaching didn't exist when I was getting my master's and, gonna get licensed and all that stuff, and not in the way it does now, and social media, that there was no classes on that in college, right? So, I don't know if you can even predict it anymore.
Mhm. It's
You just
true.
gotta follow it, the vibes.
Mhm. So you went then you started the sex and self-intimacy coaching.
Mhm.
That came out of not out of, but that was the step following marketing?
Yeah, it was kind of concurrent. So let's see, 2 or 3 years ago, I had this epiphany moment. I honestly, I would like to thank Vyvanse, my ADHD medicine, for like changing my life and allowing me to just think straight for the first time in my whole life. I had this aha moment. I was talking to my husband on January 1st, and we were talking about sex, and I was trying to explain this really specific nuance of like what I liked in bed. And, we had already had a very open conversational relationship about stuff like that. And it's sort of turned into me opening my own e-commerce shop and creating my own line of what I call like, or what he calls affectionately cottagecore bondage. And so it's silk, I know, silk like
I
bondage
love
here. And I was kind of like, I was like, I want like a feminine gaze, like that doesn't exist in that particular niche very much. And he's like, so you want like cottagecore bondage? I was like, yes. Oh my God, I do. And so I learned how to make, garment markers and found a factory here in New Jersey and went to Mood and in the city and bought silk, and I created this product line with the help of my friend Alexa, who went to FIT and is now a jewelry designer. And so that really started this path. And I learned so much so fast, as we often do. And as I sort of proceeded in that endeavor, I realized that like the 5 minutes I would talk to someone at a pop up or a girls' night or any of the million of events that I did was always the best part. And people just, spill their guts to me and be like, oh, I have this problem. Or have you ever, do you sell anything like this? And it was like things that you don't think people want to talk about. And I really learned that like the second you give people permission and opportunity and a shame-free space, they are dying to talk about it. And so I was like, wait a minute, I have a freaking degree in this. Like, I'm actually really qualified to be a coach. And I knew that I didn't want to go back down the like licensure path. It's really complicated. Insurance companies suck. Like, it's all takes a long time. It's really expensive. And so I still do both of those things, but I find so much like fulfillment now in being able to offer my expertise and my ability in the field of sexuality and what I call self intimacy. So I don't work with couples. I only work with individuals because I think that, especially for folks in long term relationships and parents, which most of us listening probably are, you forget you're a whole person. Like I'm a whole entire being all by myself. And so it's really important to me to speak to people about their pleasure and their relationship with themselves outside of your relationship with other human beings. We really don't do that very often. So yeah, I developed this niche and just went for it and have had, clients every month since I started, and it's been super fulfilling, and now have the opportunity to focus full time my attention on my coaching business, and it's thrilling.
That's amazing. I call it bus stop face, like, where someone is like, "I'm gonna see you for
Yep.
5 minutes, and I'm gonna
Yep.
download my entire
Absolutely.
anything that's sort of just been, like, hanging out at the back of my throat onto your lap, and then
Yep.
I'm just gonna leave."
Yep, that's me. I think there's some of us that have that gift of, like, being that vessel, like, people can sense it on you. They're like, "I know I can say some shit to you," and you're like, "Yep, you can. I'll take it."
Pull up a seat.
Yeah, pull with you, let's go. Okay, and my husband actually is very similar, but he doesn't have the mental health training that I do, so there are times where I draw, like, super hard boundaries. You have to. I get
Mhm.
my spidey senses going, and I'll just, like, remove myself from the situation, and he takes on all the more difficult conversations, but he was trained by his father who worked in public radio for decades, so he has that way of conversing, so he's kind of a sucker like that too, but we have a lot of fun.
You're, like, backing out of the room, and he's like, "Oh, no, I have a follow-up question," and you're like, "I'm out. No,
Yeah.
thank you."
Oh, yeah, and he asks, like, beautiful, insightful questions, and I'm like, "You don't wanna know the answer to that. I'm gonna go, 'Do you want a drink? Okay, bye.'" So, we're a good little pair in
Yeah.
that way, yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So, are the people that you work with, the clients, are they all women or
They are primarily women.
okay.
So I, on a very rare occasion, will have a male client. I've actually had male clients who were the partners of my female clients, which I'm really careful about, partially because that's really not my area of expertise, and I don't want to be irresponsible with my work. I've also had like queer clients, non-binary clients, transgender women, like the whole spectrum of femme I've had as clients. And yeah, just a couple of cisgender men. And I feel only 5% guilty about that, only because there is really shit support and this kind of coaching and this kind of exploration for men. They're so behind as it's compared to like what women have had to really persevere through. Like we, for survival, have had to like unpack and unload and create community and have really difficult conversations and fight against the patriarchal system. And they haven't had to do that. And so they're so behind. Like if you Google like male sexuality, the host of things that come back for you, it's just like toxic bullshit. And
Mhm.
so I really feel for that because I know, like, I've had friends, husbands, and ex-husbands come to me and be like, "But I really need this too." And I'm like, "I know you do. Like, you need this more than anyone, but it's really not my area of expertise. I don't feel I can responsibly do it." And so I do refer I have a couple of people in my network that work specifically with men, so I do refer out, but yeah, primarily, almost entirely women. And once a husband came to me for his wife and was like, "She's really struggling, and I just wanted to do some of the hard work and like research people." And I was like, "Okay, wow, you're amazing. Thank you." But yeah, mostly women and femmes, almost entirely.
Yeah. And so I agree wholeheartedly about the communication and culture around sexuality for men. Like, totally. I
It's
think that
gross,
it's
man.
yeah.
Like it's just bad.
Mhm. I grew up playing hockey on,
Mm.
like, male teams and grew up like, all of that stuff, and it's just the stuff is not it's the blind leading the blind for
Oh,
generations.
for sure. For sure. And
And
it's so toxic. And
mhm,
so I talk a lot about play versus performance as it relates to sex because the way that sex is positioned is so often performance based. Beginning, middle, end, a right way and a wrong way. You must do this. This is what signifies the end of the experience. And there's so much pressure and so much insecurity about like how to do it right. and the opposite of that is play. But like the entire world of male sexuality is rooted like deeply into the idea of performance. And
Yeah.
it's hard to break out of that. And it's
Yeah.
way less fun to do
Mhm.
that way.
And I mean, interestingly enough, like just to be the literally, I was literally the fly on the wall is like you can hear the guys talking about it in the locker
Mhm.
room because like you're there and just trying to get dressed and I'm like
Yeah.
head down, like, oh my
Mind
God,
your
I
own
can't
business.
even. Yeah. And then you go in, and then I also played sports with on girls' teams with like their girlfriends. And
Oh my
so
gosh,
I
I bet that was so fascinating.
in the locker room. And so, like, I fall sports, I was on girls' teams, and the winter sport, I was in the guys' locker room. And so it was like the I got the girls' perspective first, and like that
Mhm.
whole, like you're saying, like talking about the play over performance and the like everything is just not there's no polish to it. It's just this is
Mhm.
what it is. And
Mhm.
then you go into the locker room and you're like, I know for sure that you
Yeah.
are completely full of shit.
Yes.
For for
Oh my god, what
100%.
was your biggest learning? Like, what was the most consistent thing that you heard? Was, like, dudes thinking, like, "I'm the man," or, like, just bragging about being the man, and then their girlfriends being like, "Nah, mama," like, "Not so great." Like, what was it? I need to
I
know.
think yeah, I think the thing that I always took away that was really interesting was, like, the girls would talk about, like, how they were really sweet, like, when they were doing things that was
Oh.
really kind and thoughtful, and then you
Mhm.
see these guys and you're like, "Your knuckles are dragging on the ground talking about
Yeah.
this," and, like,
Yeah.
I know that this is not true because I heard and it's not negative, it's not like, one side's trash and the other side in any way, shape, or form, it was just like, when you are in this setting with your girlfriend and you are like when all of this is going on, that is like it's very, very sweet and very considerate and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And the way that you talk about it in the locker room does not create space for other people to like collaborate or not collaborate, to build community around
Mhm.
that knowledge and understanding because I know like and you are all having the same experience, but you're not talking about it in a way that
Yep.
is authentic in any way.
Yep. Isn't that wild? I talk to my husband about this a lot because he's a absolutely lovely, wonderful man, and, we have the whole millennial male loneliness epidemic, and
Mhm.
he's always like, "Well, we don't really talk about that," and I'm like, "Be the change you wish to see." Like, someone has to start, and the second you start, you'll have it, you'll be there. Like, I promise you, like, if you just send the text that you're gonna go get a drink at the pub, like, they will show up, but just someone has to start. That's all it takes. But
Yeah.
it's just they're so isolated. So I do, like, I really feel for my clients, their partners. It's a really tough time, but I always tell people, like, nothing is broken forever. Like,
Mhm.
I promise you the smallest things can create the biggest change in your relationship, in your sexual pleasure, and whatever it is. Like, someone just has to start. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, it's exactly what you're doing, right? It's like someone has to
Yep.
be like you send the text, I'm going here. You put up the stick your stake in the ground and say, I'm here to talk about intimacy
Yep.
and pleasure and all of that stuff. And then all of a sudden, right, people are like, doo doo
Everyone
doo,
shows
like
up.
out of the trees.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. I mean, it's been funny. I've done, girls' nights kind of events where with friends who are like, I don't know if anyone's going to talk. Like, I have never talked to my friends about this. This whole group of people, like, we've never talked about it. I don't even own a vibrator. And it takes 5 seconds, like truly 5 seconds to open the door. And people are ready and excited and interested and lovely, like kind and very little shame and no, we'll yuck people's yums around here, so it's been really it's always heartwarming. Every time I open the door, people walk through, sit down, have a conversation. It's
Yeah.
really awesome. So much fun too.
In your experience, same question, what is your biggest learning in all of it? Or
Yeah.
couple, like, what do you see most often?
What do
What
I
is
see
the
the most?
surprising.
I mean, certainly on the surface, most often is moms who don't wanna have sex. They do it because they feel guilty, and there's a shit ton of projection on both sides about why that is or what it means. And half more than half the time, I give a very quick education on types of desire, which I will do for you now if you'd like, and realize that the majority of people assigned female at birth have responsive desire, which just means like something has to get you going. It's not going to just come out of nowhere. And there's nothing like you're not broken. Like the number of times I tell people you're not broken every single day. And so everyone thinks they're broken. Everyone thinks they're the only one that's broken. And everyone thinks that it's going to be broken forever. And it's just, that's not the case. Like everyone's
Mhm.
broken. Can you guys all listen? Like everyone thinks they're broken and you're not. Like I promise. I promise. I promise. Um, and people don't like, especially the moms that I talk to, and I myself as a mom have experienced this, like, I'll ask the question often, "What gives you pleasure? What brings you pleasure?" And I don't mean sexually, I mean generally. And most of the time the response is like, "I don't even know what that means anymore." And I'm like,
Mm.
"Do you like it when there's a warm breeze on your face?" And they're like, "Yeah, that feels really good." I'm like, "Yep, there you go." Like, it's the smallest things, but we really lose access to that part of our brain, I think, when we're going so fast and we're caring for everyone else's needs and we're in these sort of enmeshed relationships often. And like, I would say those are the two biggest things. Everyone thinks they're broken and you have completely forgotten that you actually do experience pleasure all the time and you just don't even realize that that's what it is. But it's there. It's all around you all the time.
Yeah, it's that level of numbness that you reach, like, when you can't stop
Mhm.
and attend to anything because you
You're
don't
just
have
going.
time.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk a lot about I have hosted a couple of workshops called Welcoming Pleasure, which I will make into a course one day, I promise. But it's all about abundance versus scarcity mindset.
Mhm.
And that construction I found is really helpful for people to realize that like our brains create our reality and it's really getting in your way when you have that scarcity mindset and it's really easy to have them. I mean, I go through it every day up and down through both of those things and it's actually hilarious to be like planning for these workshops when, I'm working full time, I'm a mom, my daughter's birthday is coming, whatever, whatever, whatever. And then I'm like talking about abundance, but in my own head, like, there's no time, I have nothing, this is a failure. And I'm like, oh shit, okay, listen to my own advice. I guess I will. I guess I can try.
Oh my god,
It's very
yes,
ironic.
you're preaching to the choir. It's like, we talk about I mean, yeah, there's so many things where I'm like, "This is the outside version, and this is like
Mhm,
the not necessarily the projection of it, but, like, this is what I know to be true based on experience and
mhm,
education and all of that stuff," but still, like, you get stuck in your own head where you're like, "Primitive brain, everything is
mhm.
bad, everything is
Yeah.
scary, oh my gosh," and it's like,
Yeah.
just send the email. Just
Yeah,
stop
it's all
overthinking.
okay. I know, I know. Even I, like, none of us are safe. None of us are safe. That's the other thing I would say that's very consistent is, like, as it relates to our sexual shame, certainly, like, our idea of body comfort and how the society you live in has impacted that is, like, no one is safe. We're all affected. The person you think that has it all figured out also is struggling, also feels like shit about themselves sometimes. And it's all a fucking lie, man. It's all a
Mhm,
sham.
mhm.
Just they're just trying to get you down. So,
That's what I say. I'm like, "You are I don't even know where I heard this. You are a ghost in a meat suit on a dirty space rock." Like, the
yes,
perspective has to be
that's so
that.
funny.
It cannot
Yes.
be like, "Oh, I would like to be this size," or "I would like to look like this," or "I blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah." It's like, you're only here for a relatively short period of time,
Like a
and you get
speck.
yeah, and you get to do, like, this whole wide spectrum of things if you don't
Mhm.
let yourself get in the way of yourself.
Yeah. We really are our own biggest enemies, like, in so many ways, in so
Mhm,
many ways. And it's if you're a in tune, aware person, tuned into what's happening in the world around you, it's super overwhelming. Like, it's so overwhelming, especially now, and we can really drown in the guilt and the chaos and the news and the everything, and you just, like even I have to remind myself, like, "Just take a minute, just take 1 minute. You have 1 minute. You
mhm.
you got this."
Yeah.
Like that,
Alright.
I'm gonna use that on my own brain too.
I'm a ghost in a meat suit.
Yes.
Here
Yes.
I go.
I love it. Yeah.
So, let's talk about you said the 5 different types of pleasure?
There's
Desire?
2. There's
2.
only 2. 2
Okay.
types of desire. Yep.
Okay.
There's responsive and spontaneous. So there's tons of resources out in the world about this. Just Google it, you will find it. Responsive is, I want to say, I hope I get these statistics right off the top of my head. 85% of people assigned female at birth experience responsive desire, which means something has to happen, some stimuli has to happen around you to feel sexual desire. So it could be like, I saw a movie, or oh my gosh, I don't know. I love smut. Like, I love audiobooks, and so that really works for me, but something has to happen, whereas spontaneous desire, 15% of people assigned female at birth experience spontaneous desire, which means I can be in the mood generally anytime, whatever that means. And we can change these types throughout our life. You can probably change throughout the day. I wanna say it's something like 85% of people assigned male at birth experience spontaneous. So because of that, society, the patriarchy, right, has decided that spontaneous desire is healthy. That's the healthy way. That's the right way. And responsive desire means you're broken, which is why you see all of the marketing that you see for any various things targeted at women's sexual desire. And there's very interesting research. If you read the book Come As You Are by Dr. Emily Nagoski, I freaking love her. I love that book. I
Mhm.
recommend it to literally everybody. There's interesting research about how most of the supplements, if not all, there's a new one that's supposedly pretty good. The supplements to increase female libido, low libido, don't work because that's not the problem. Like, there isn't some chemical thing, synapses firing, that is broken. It's just simply that your responsive desire is not being stoked. The context is not there for it. Your She always talks about your offs and your ons. So, like, turning off the offs and turning on the ons. It's just not being tended to. And because we have this idea that everyone is supposed to just be able to be in the mood whenever they feel like it, we've stopped ourselves from actually just caring for ourselves in the way that we could. And that little factoid, I think, really helps people release the guilt and shame about being broken. Like I said, everyone thinks they're broken in some way, and you just simply are not. And so, there's a lot of contextual factors around that. Sometimes, if the sink is full of dishes, like, that's an off, right? Like, that's gonna turn you off. So you have to turn off the off. Like, that is all really valid too. But
Right.
generally speaking, yeah, it's just these two types of desire, and one of them society has decided is good, and the other one they've decided is bad, and they're not. They're just neutral. It's just neutral. And so getting to know yourself, if you're a person who has responsive desire, getting to know yourself. What do you like? What don't you like? Like, that's just incredibly powerful. And it's important to note also that I am not the best at remembering statistics, but something like 85% of couples have discordant desire types. So one has one and one has the other. So it would be actually weirder for you to have the same type of desire than for you to have the same. And so that specific discrepancy of types of desire is the root of so many marital issues, relationship issues, divorces probably, but it is really just a simple difference in how you're wired. But I often say that sex is a symptom and a cause of marital issues, relationship issues, what have you. So it gets messy, right? But if you know that fact, if you know that there's responsive and spontaneous and they're both neutral and they're both fine and you just have to tend to that type, that can be really powerful.
Yeah. I mean, I think too, yeah, to say that like how many of those issues disconnect between how much of that can be cleared up with a conversation. Not necessarily one, but like opening up that line of communication to talk
Yep.
about that. Isn't that
Yep.
crazy?
Isn't that wild? I know. I talk very, very much in the stories we tell ourselves. So we make meaning out of everything. That is what humans do. And so I guarantee you, I'll tell a story about an anonymous person that I know just to illustrate my point that, like, we are all creating stories. And if we just literally just ask the other person, "Hey, what's going on?" You might find that this story that's been holding you back for years is just you made it up in your head. I knew someone who really enjoyed receiving oral sex, and their partner had not done that in like 2 years. And they were really tortured by this. They were like, I'm aging, I'm gaining weight. It's since we had our second kid. It was really hard. There was a lot of like grief and shame about this fact that their partner did not give them oral sex anymore, even though it was their favorite thing in the whole world. And I was like, have you ever asked? Like, just brought it up. And finally they did. And they were like, oh my God. My partner said that they stopped doing it because every time they would try, I would push them away. I'd be like, no, I haven't showered. No, I'm not in the mood. Or like, I would push them away. So they stopped doing it, but it's also their favorite thing. And that was it. Like now we give and receive oral sex whenever we want and we feel really good about it. And it was just that they had made this whole they both actually had made this whole story up in their heads about what was going on. And one conversation of just like, can we be real? Like, what's going on here? And it's scary. That's so scary to like open the can of worms is so scary. But it is always better to open the can of worms than to sit and silence and grief and shame and not know what's going on with your partner or yourself.
Yeah, you gotta know what's behind door number 1 or door number 2 or whatever it is, because then
Scary.
you
I
can deal.
totally get it. You're like, what if everything breaks? What if everything's a mess and we start fighting? Like, you might, but also like living in this weird ass limbo is probably not great either. So,
Mhm. Yeah, oh my gosh. I feel like responsive desire is like can also be called like read the room. It's one of
yeah,
those things like when we're talking about,
yeah.
to pull in Emily, I've read she wrote another one about burnout. I read that one that she
And
and
she wrote
that
another I have a funny fact, actually. She wrote a third book called Come Together because she realized that when she was on tour for Come As You Are, her first book, she did not wanna have sex with her partner. She was like, "I'm not in the fucking mood, and I'm on tour about this book about how to be in the mood," right? And so she really dug into that and wrote a book about, like, desire in long-term committed relationships. And I just like, I love that. It's like even her, right? Even she had to figure it
Mhm.
out all over again because the only constant is change.
Yeah. Well,
She wrote,
and yeah, and I think about how, how about somebody like that, right? Where everyone is like, "Oh, but she's a published author and she's a
right.
researcher and blah, 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 blah." Like I'm sure, it's when somebody who has achieved that status or that level or that, ownership, expertise, blah, 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 turns around and says like, "No, it's a problem. Like I'm humaning alongside everyone
Yeah.
else who's trying to human these days."
That's the whole point. Like it's the
Mhm.
whole thing is that it's gonna change forever. I do also that's another actually really consistent thing I hear is, but we used to have great sex. It used
Mhm.
to be amazing. We used to be so free when we were 20. I'm like, well, how much has changed since you were 20? Like every single thing about your life, maybe. And it doesn't mean because you had it all figured out then and you don't have it figured out now.
Yeah, I mean, people change, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, when you're 20, you've gotta, like, pay your rent and spend, like, $85 on groceries, and then you're 35 and you're like, $85 on fruit,
Yeah. Yeah. On freaking blueberries.
blueberries.
Holy Costco blueberries.
Mhm. For sure. But I think, yeah, I think that's a really important part to talk about is that this responsive desire and this read the room and the idea of, like, I feel like there's a compartmentalization
Mhm.
piece that goes along with those 2 different types of desire, right? It's like somebody with and this is totally I haven't done any research or reading on this, but this is just the way it sounds to me. It's like spontaneous desire is like an incredible ability to compartmentalize. It's like the dishes are in the sink, the laundry is like it smells because you forgot it in the basement. There's like this, and this whole list of things that has to be done. But that person is able to be like, not right now. Like, all of
Yeah.
those things, like, the world could be on fire, but, like, I'm not thinking about that right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Versus a responsive desire person is, like, not necessarily all of those things, but, like, my immediate top 5 needs to be
Mhm.
taken care of before I will entertain this conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've never thought about it that way, but I think there could be something there for sure because it's really all it goes back to the idea of like what are your ons and offs? Like you
Mhm.
might just because you can kind of oversee or overlook the dishes or the mess or the whatever, you don't have those offs. You're like, "Meh, whatever. It's fine." Yeah, I never thought about it that way. That's a really interesting point. And I think that it doesn't mean that I will say this. It doesn't mean that if you have a lot of offs, like the same girl, dishes, stressful, hate them, right? Doesn't mean that all that stuff has to be perfect for you to get in the
Right.
mood, right?
Right.
Like you can still create space and create context for yourself to feel sexual desire and enjoy sexual experiences, especially if you kind of recognize that like do you ever engage with Casey Davis? Do you know who that is? She's, like, on TikTok, and
Mm.
she's an LPC, a licensed counselor. She's got some great takes. I guess she has a book called How to Keep House While Drowning. That
Yes.
have you heard of that? Yeah.
Yeah.
So she has some really, really awesome I love her, but one of the things she said that kind of broke my brain was that the dishes and the laundry, those 2 specific things, are never done. There is no done. They are always in a state of being, always in a state of doing, and if you can kind of accept that, like, there will never be a day where the dishes are done, it's freeing if you can kind of get away from the existential dread of that, like, if you can reroute your brain to be like, "It is just in a state of doing," it kind of helps you not put so many eggs in that basket, I guess.
Mhm.
I really love her. She's I mean, now I hope that, like, when this gets aired, she's not canceled or something. I feel like that happens on TikTok all the time, but for right now, today, she is not canceled, and I love her.
I wonder too about when you talk about things that aren't done, like how many people use the laundry and the dishes,
Mhm,
not because it's necessarily the laundry and the dishes, but because that's a place. It's like when we talk about things, stereotypes or defaults or whatever, like when people say the dishes, but they're not really talking about the dishes.
mhm. My husband and I call it the dishes fight. We're like, "Is this a dishes fight?" Which is basically a fight about something totally else that is not actually what we're arguing about. Sometimes I think that emotions are complex and human beings are complex and the dynamics between two human beings are complex. And it's actually really hard. Like, I have a freaking master's degree in psychology and I still sometimes can't properly identify and express myself when I am upset. And so it's easier and more accessible for us to fight about the thing we can both visually see than it
Yes.
is to fight about what's actually going on, which a lot of the time we can't grasp, we can't understand. And also, another reason why I think self intimacy is so freaking important, especially when you're in a long term relationship, because self awareness is like the key, I think, to like being a functioning human. Like, if you don't know what's going on with yourself, how can you have an argument with your partner if you don't know how you actually feel about it? You don't actually know what you're upset about. And I have a lot of exercises that are really interesting of kind of like unpacking that iceberg, right? Like, the top of the iceberg is the dishes and you go layer by layer under the iceberg into the ocean to figure out like, oh, what's actually under here? Because it's something totally different, right? It's like, I don't usually it's I feel unlovable. I don't feel cared for. I don't feel heard. I don't feel seen, right? It's usually those kind of key things, but you got to unpack the iceberg first before you can get there. And it's hard. It's hard to do, especially when you're tired and you got kids screaming in your face and you're exhausted from work and you have a million things to figure out and plan, like, it's hard to spend the time to figure out what the hell's going on.
Mhm. So what would you say to a mom who's listening to the podcast who is like nodding along right now going, "Yeah, yeah, that's me. That's definitely me. Like I know I'm pissed about this, whatever this is,
Mhm.
but I don't feel like I can have this conversation with my partner. Or I don't feel like they're going to understand or I don't feel like they're going to care or they're going to have something crappy to say about it." Like what do you say to them?
I would say first, like, get right with yourself. Like, first, I am a one of those people that will recommend that you journal all the time and don't actually do it very often myself. So, do what I say, not what I do. But I think in a situation like that, I call it the because I'm sure there's like a name for it. But like, write down the thing you're pissed about. I'm pissed that the dishes aren't done and just keep writing the word because until you have that aha moment of like, oh shit, that's actually what's going on.
Mhm.
I'm pissed about the dishes because I'm exhausted, because I feel like I do everything, because I don't feel like you contribute, because I don't feel like you care about me, right? Get to the bottom of the because statements before you bring that to your partner. And the whole relationships are hard, right? Like we get really caught up in being right instead of caring for each other. And I would say have perseverance and recognize that like your partner is going to react. They're going to have reactions and defensiveness to the thing that you're saying. And trust your relationship. Like trust the person that like we care for each other. We give a shit about each other. We're here on this earth like saying yes to this relationship every day for some reason. And it might get messy, but if they care about you, and I assume that they do, like assume positive intent, like work through the muck.
Mhm.
And it's similar to like when people come to me because they want to explore kink or something outside of the sexual realm that they're used to. And I remind them that, like, remember when you're first dating somebody and you could say one thing that would like end the whole relationship? Like, you could say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or do something weird and the whole relationship could be over. You're way past that. You are theoretically in the most secure relationship of your entire life. And so don't fear that you're gonna say the one wrong thing that's gonna
Mhm.
break everything because you can always have 85 more conversations about it. So, yeah, trust the relationship, try and unpack it and just be really clear in your communication as much as possible. I'm feeling really upset right now because I feel like you don't care about me because of blah blah blah, and I know that you do care about me, and I really want to work through this together because I know that you care. Also, read the book Fair Play by Eve Rodsky, please God. Like every partner in a heterosexual relationship. Fair Play, Eve Rodsky. She's got a TED Talk. Just everyone needs to watch it. Please, 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 please.
I
Not here.
Yeah, and I think that that is really interesting because also to the same to I guess what we were talking about earlier in the episode is that, if men don't have if they don't have frameworks to think about relationships and communication and all that stuff, right? Like if you show up to this conversation and you're in this space where you haven't sorted out the part of it, right? Now you're in that dishes fight forever, but the dishes fight isn't going to change. It's not like, even if the person does the dishes, right? Like you get in the fight, the person's like, "Okay, fine, I'll go do the dishes." The
That
f
doesn't help.
it's not over, like, because on that level, all they have to go with for information is, "Okay, you're mad about the dishes."
Yep.
And they're like, "Okay, so I've solved the problem," right? It's
I
like,
did the dishes, yeah.
I did the
One time.
thing.
Yeah. There's also a somewhat terrifying, but also empowering this is a great preview, honestly, of coaching with me because I am just, like, full of information. I'm like, "This researcher and this person and this TED Talk and this podcast and read this book." The Gottmans are famous marriage researchers and counselors, and I mean, they're amazing. But one of the things that they have found is that you basically have the same fight over and over for the rest of your relationship. Like you have 3 or 4 key issues that are just inherent in your personality traits or dynamics, and you will fight about the same things forever.
Mhm,
And so there's something weirdly freeing about that, at least for me, where you're not there to win the fight, you're there to fight well. It's not about not fighting or arguing or having conflict or whatever. You're there to use that argument as a way to continue to build intimacy and connection with your partner, build self awareness, build empathy for your partner, not to win the fight, not to forever get your partner to do the dishes. Like, it's not it. So, like, sorry if that's terrifying that you're gonna have the same fight over and over, but I do think there's something there that will release you from the, like, if I just say the right order of words, it's gonna change everything and they're gonna do the thing the way that I want them to do. It's like, in a weird upside down way, arguing and fighting about these same things for the rest of our relationships are a way to build intimacy, repair conflict, learn about each other, learn about ourselves.
yeah, for sure, I agree, and I think too, that's the thing is, like, that we focus so much on, "I just wanna be done with this fight." Whatever
Yeah,
the
it
issue is,
feels
I just
bad.
wanna yeah,
Yeah.
like, I just wanna, like, have some resolution. But if you're only ever fighting about the thing that's not
Mhm.
actually the thing,
Yeah.
then you're doing a really good job avoiding the thing and, like,
Yep.
working through all of the steps, but you're not actually getting to the crux of the issue.
Yeah. Yep. Because it's there. It's just gonna I mean, you know, I have an incredible partner. I'm so grateful for him, and there's just ways that his brain are wired, ways that my brain are wired that, like, are always gonna be in conflict. They're always like, he can't read my mind. Spoiler alert, like, no one can read your mind. So, yeah, we're just gonna have to keep navigating the fact that he can't read my mind, I guess, and vice versa.
Mhm. For sure, and that's a good thing, right? Like, you don't wanna get to
Yeah.
a point where, like, you don't have to have conversation. It's just this idea that you're striving to be in a place where it's like, you just
Mhm.
know each other so well, you don't have to what like, that's just people
Yeah.
that have figured out how to occupy space together.
Exactly, and I've heard of people, like, naming their brains. So, like, I tell my daughter who's 7 when she is scared or upset that your brain lies to you. I'm like, "Oh, your brain is lying to you today, like, it's making you feel scared. So you say to your brain, 'No, thank you, not today,' right?" Like, and, it's funny because, like, I learned that 4 years ago, but, here we are. The next generation, they're gonna be okay. Name your brain and name your relationship is another
Mhm.
thing I've heard where, like, that way you can blame if you feel like you have to blame somebody, if you feel like it has to be the other person's fault, if you name your relationship like Harold or whatever, you can be like, "Frickin' Harold is really pissing me off today." And it's A, funny, and B, it allows you to, like, alleviate some of that pressure and some of that intensity of the situation if you can fight about your relationship as if it's its own entity, because in a lot of ways it is. It's its own system, which I find, kind of endearing in a way, that idea.
Yeah, giving some space where it's not
Mhm.
necessarily person versus person because then you can't have objective about it. It's like, "Well, if you
No,
don't agree with me, then you don't care." You're like,
right. Yeah. Whereas, like, the flip of that would be like, I feel cared for when
"Mhm,
XYZ thing happens, right? But you gotta know that before you say it out loud.
mhm,
And you also have to remember that people process at different speeds. So, like, that's something I've had in my own relationship where, like, I think really fast. And I have training in it to be self aware, but I'm pretty good usually at knowing what's going on in my brain. Whereas my partner needs more time to think. And that's okay, but that's really unsatisfying sometimes when you're like, I just want to hash this out. And he's like, I got to process. I'm like, "Ugh, fine. Okay.
do the dishes while you're processing."
Yeah, go do the dishes. It's zen out at the dishes. Thank you."
Oh my gosh. So for people, I think bringing the motherhood piece into it, right, is like
Mhm.
things change. You're younger, things are, I mean, not carefree, but the level of responsibility and
Mhm.
obligation and stress and structure and all that stuff is not what it is when you have small people,
Mhm.
medium people, adult people.
Mhm.
And so when people go from having sort of the expectation that they're going to be 20 years old forever, which is crazy,
Yeah.
to then moving into a position in their life where they've got kids and they've got, every email under the sun coming into them. It's
Mhm.
also we're recording this in May, so
Yep.
May-cember is the absolute
Holy shit.
gauntlet of parenting.
It
Um,
really is. I was just telling my own mother about this. I was like, "Well, they're all crazy right now." She's like, "Oh." I'm like, "Do you not remember that?" "Okay. Yeah, no, they're
it's
crazy right
just
now."
everything's
I get it.
everything's nuts, right?
Yep.
So when people come in, like, I'm just thinking about, it's this idea of like what you liked and what worked for you and all of those
Mhm.
pieces that happens in your 20s, and then you have people that are coming in that are either saying, I want to be 20 again, or I
Yeah.
don't even like this, or I don't even know, like, what how do people find you,
Mhm.
and how does it is there a difference between what it looks like if depending on where someone meets you in that timeline?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone's different and everyone's the same in all kinds of ways, but I would say that there is this notion, and it all goes back to play versus performance in my opinion, but there's this notion that, like, it used to work and now it doesn't, which means that that way was the only right way and there's no more options on the table. And it also goes back to the scarcity mindset of, like, there's only one way to do something. And I always tell people, you could explore a new sensation, kink, whatever, every single day for the rest of your lives and never run out. Like, I talk about sex all day and I learn about new things that people are into all the time. And so it really is about releasing expectation of like how it should be. And that is the same no matter what phase you're in, whether you're 20, maybe especially when you're 20, but we get stuck in a rut, right? It's just simply getting stuck in a rut of thinking that like, well, I guess this is the one way. And since I don't have access to that way anymore, that's it. And, you can't control your circumstances. So I have a lot of moms who are like, well, I want to have sex with my partner. We're both into it, but we're afraid that our kids are going to burst in the door because they do it all the time. And my response to that is like, I can't fix that for you, right? Like, I don't have a magical wand that's going to stop your kids from bursting in the door. I really wish I did, truly. But what I would encourage you to do is like release the notion that this one way of engaging, so like penetrative sex, for example, is the only way to be intimate and to have sexual pleasure with each other. So if you are connecting and experiencing pleasure and intimacy all throughout your day in all these little and big ways, that one time, that one day a week that you get to actually be in bed together at the same time is not going to feel like the make or break of your entire relationship because sex is about connection. And one thing that I talk a lot about on my Instagram, Angie Anger Coach, there is a diagram. I think it's the most recent post because I haven't posted it forever that I call the sex spiral of doom. This is like, please listen to me, which is basically you may have responsive desire or you're just stressed or you're overwhelmed. And so you're like, ugh, I'm really not in the mood to have sex. And so I'm going to pull away from my partner because I don't want them to get the idea that I want to have sex with them and therefore have to reject them. So I'm going to pull away because the idea that I would reject them is painful and I don't want to do that to them. So I'm going to pull away. So now what we've done is we've removed opportunities for connection with our partner, physical and emotional and otherwise opportunities, which then makes the sex that you are wishing and dreading you didn't have to have the most important thing that you could ever possibly do because you've removed every other opportunity for connection and intimacy with your partner, which then makes it the most important thing in the entire world, which makes you dread it even more, which makes you pull away even more, which makes it the most hard you see. So like that sex spiral of doom, I have experienced myself. Every single married person I know has experienced it, and it gets worse and harder when you have kids. And so I always tell clients like connection begets connection. The more connection you have, the better. The more pleasure you experience, the better. Because that one thing, like that one idea of like penetrative sex or however you define like official sex as the only most important way, you're just setting yourself up to fail and be disappointed and create the sex spiral of doom. And we don't want that for you.
Yeah, I mean, like what you were saying earlier, like let go of the
Yep.
expectations and the strict like categorization of what is
Yes.
good, bad, okay, not okay.
Right. Wrong. Yeah. The world is so enormous and the world of pleasure and the world of sex and the world of physical intimacy and otherwise is you wouldn't believe. Like I said, I learn new things all the time that people are into and people like, and you could explore for the literal rest of your life. I promise you could.
I think that's so important for people to hear is like the idea that it's not, it's not set in stone. Nothing is set in
Mm-mm.
stone. And that
Nope.
just like you're not the same person when you're, 40 that
Yep.
you were when you're 20, like you don't want to be. I mean,
I
maybe
sure
there's some
don't.
like God, I don't want to be in my early 20s again. I want
No.
to there's some things I wouldn't mind like being able to like hop out of bed in the morning and on 2
I
hours of
mean,
sleep, but
that would be rad. Although in hindsight, I'm like, I wasn't very good at that either. So I don't know. But I always say, like, the cornerstone of coaching, any kind of coaching, like any kind at all, is like you cannot change your circumstances generally. There
Mhm.
are experiences that you have that are either true or false. Like, I fell down the stairs this morning. I didn't, but as an example. And the thing that you can change is your thought about that. So you could be like, I'm such a fuck up. I can't believe I fell down the stairs. I'm so old. Or you could be like, well, I slipped on those slippery stairs. Right. And then
Mhm.
how you feel is going to be based on what you thought about that thing. And so you really do have the opportunity. This is not magical thinking. This is not like toxic positivity. I don't believe in toxic positivity. I don't think you can like be happy if your life fucking sucks, right? Like if there are bad things happening in your life, that sucks. I
Hmm.
validate that that sucks. But there's tiny little nuances to how you think about it that can make a big difference in how you feel about it. And that, like I said, all the little things are the big things.
Yeah, and, and that's to the same end, like, you are not circumstances, that is important to say. Circumstances are your circumstances, because I think that
Yeah.
when we latch on to, like, well, if this happens, right? Like, if I sign this big client, or I get this promotion at work, or, we get the house that we want, or whatever, like, all of a sudden everything is
Oh,
gonna be
everybody's
unlocked.
totally different. Yeah. I've moved across country 4 times in my life, and I can tell you that didn't change anything about who I am. I really thought it was going to. I was like, everything's gonna be great now. But nope, you're the same person. And I think especially when you have kids and you have these circumstances that you really, really, I mean, there's nothing you can do about the fact that you have young kids who have a lot of needs, who like wake up at 1 a.m. with growing pains. Not a real example from my own life last night at all. Like, you cannot change that. And you have to be generous with yourself and your partner that, like, we are in a phase of life where we have young kids who have a lot of needs who bust into our room in the middle of the night, and really try and work around those and open your expectations, because that's how you get into a situation where you're like, well, we can only have sex if we go to a hotel, which means that we have to like call my mother-in-law or like whatever. Like we don't want that either. Oh, can I say one more thing? It's really important to me.
Absolutely.
This is my other big advice. If you are in therapy, and I will say 99% of my coaching clients are in either couples and or individual therapy, and your therapist, when talking about sex, was like, schedule sex. And that way you won't have to think about it. If that causes you dread and grief and all of those bad feelings, that is not the right tactic for you. If when your therapist was like, schedule sex on Saturdays, and that way you know it's going to happen, and then you spend every second from Sunday to Saturday morning thinking about that and dreading it and not excited about it, that is not the right tactic for you. Please don't do that. I hear that all the time, and I get why that's a recommendation. And if you're pumped about it, if you're like, fuck yeah, Saturday, awesome, that's the right tactic for you. Most people, that is not the right tactic for, especially when you have young kids. So that is my
Yeah.
PSA. Don't feel like that's supposed to fix your sex life if it makes you feel awful.
Well, and especially too, like I mean, I don't know if anyone has ever had children, but I have yet to have one like on a schedule where I can be like,
Yeah.
absolutely, this time will be free, going forward. It's
Mhm.
like, the spinning plates and the glass balls and the, like
Plastic balls and yeah.
everything under the sun is always constantly changing. Like you said, like
Yep.
the only
Yep.
constant is change. And so I feel like that would be so stressful to just nail that down and be like, all right, so here's the day. It's like we can schedule garbage day, but we are not going to schedule
Totally.
this.
Yeah. Yeah, and it could be like Saturday night after the kids go to bed, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, who the fuck knows what's gonna happen that day? Does
Hmm.
someone now suddenly sick and has to hand, foot, mouth or something? Probably. Yeah, that's what's gonna happen. I feel
Hmm.
like that's what you learn from parenting is like, don't tempt fate. It's gonna get you.
Yeah. Well, and then you run into the additional issue of like, but this was the only time, like you're
Right.
saying,
And it
right? It's
wasn't.
like,
It totally wasn't. Yep.
hmm,
Like, don't push away when you're feeling that lack of connection with your partner. Pull them closer.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's awesome. Well, let everybody know where they can find you, because I hope that your, inbox explodes after this, because
I please.
I do think that, if you put the stake in the ground and say, I'm here to talk about this, like you said,
Yep.
people are looking for someone to talk about. And especially as you navigate these changes in your own life, what does that mean
Mhm.
for interactions that you have? Because you could have had like the most, the deepest connection, and all stars are aligned and blah blah blah, and then you have kids and one of your kids has colic, or someone's got this or whatever,
Yeah.
and
Oh
it's
my
like,
gosh.
how do you like work your way back to that? So,
Yeah, you gotta reroute. Yeah,
mhm.
and I always tell my clients it's a terrible business practice, but my goal as the coach is not to keep selling you on coaching. That is sometimes what people do in this industry, but, like, my goal is, like, I want you to have education, all the information that's in my brain, I'm going to give it to you, and you didn't have to listen to 85 million podcasts.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you tools to unpack your own situation and keep going back to it. Because when your circumstances change next, you shouldn't have to come back to me to figure it out. You should be able to be like, what was that thing Angie said? I'm going to do the because, or whatever it is. That really is my goal. Like, you shouldn't have to see me forever to have a great sex life. Really, like 90 days. I've never met someone who like didn't make a huge change and fix some pretty significant shit in 90 days. So my
Love
website
that.
is angieanger.com. It's Enger. I'm on Instagram, Angie Anger Coach. I don't really use TikTok, so I won't even give you that. Maybe one day. And you can just fill out the contact form on my site, or there's a coaching application. I used to have a scheduler on there, but in my field, there are a lot of people who schedule phone calls who are not actually looking for coaching when they see the word sex. So I had to take that down, but it's been a wild ride. But
That's a
like I
learning
said,
opportunity.
those spidey senses I have really come in handy, though. It's like you can shut something down really pretty quick. So I did take the scheduler off my site, but if you fill out the contact form or you fill out the application for coaching, which is linked everywhere, even if you're like, I don't know if I want to do coaching or not, I just want to talk to you, please just fill that out anyway. I'll set up time and we'll chat and it'll be great. And even if you decide coaching's not right for you, you will at least end up with like a bunch of recommendations for books. I also have a bookshop.org page. I'll give you the link, Ashley, if you can put it in the
Okay.
notes. That also has my parenting recommendations. So there's a bunch of, I always get asked by moms, okay, so now how do we raise our kids? And I'm like, great question. So there's a lot of book recommendations on there for parents and otherwise that will be useful. And we love
Yeah.
bookshop.org. Yay.
I know, that independent, yay. And I definitely, just off the top of my head, want to have you come back, and I want to talking about intimacy with our kids, because that
Yes. I
is
have
a
so many thoughts about it.
pro. Stay tuned for part 2, because I think that that is another area, especially when we're talking about, like, having people, having not having a framework to go on, and how that is.
Mhm.
Like, we've gotta have one person in the locker room that's like, "That's not actually true."
Yeah. It's never
Um,
too early. There's ways to talk about, you know, our bodies and consent and body safety and sex from when your kids are 4 and up. And please don't talk to your girls earlier than you talk to your boys because I see that a lot. And the boys need that stuff too.
ding, ding, ding.
Because girls get their period as early as 8 now. Did you know that?
No, it's crazy.
My daughter's 7.
Yeah. No,
What?
it's yeah. Everything
No.
is so much faster. Everything is happening too quickly.
Yeah. I was
Oh.
11. I thought that was crazy. But now I'm like, 8? Oh my. Like, you're a kid. Your brain
Single
does not
digits.
work enough for
No.
that at all. No.
Oh.
So anyway,
it's a
talk
whole
to your
thing.
boys too, please. Thank you.
Yes. And we will pick up right where we left off when we get into that. And thank you so much for coming on today. I think it is a massive amount of resources for people. And I think too, like, just to set up the shop and say, all right, let's talk about it, is incredible. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. This was an absolute blast.